Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead.
It's never too late to have your day one, irrespective of how you've made mistakes in the past. Maybe you're listening today and you're like, man, I've messed up a bunch of stuff. I feel like I've spent my life climbing the ladder of success, and I look over and my wife and kids are on a different building. It's never too late for a day one, and it's never too late to climb down off the ladder. It's never too late to begin again. And I think that that's one of the marvelous things about the grace of God is that He's literally just always a half turn away from me, just my flinch back toward Him to be like, man, I've blown it. I need a fresh start. And the answer is yes.
Before we get started today, we wanted to take a moment to let you know about some amazing events coming up.
Ladies, join us for Mom's Day Out 2026 in beautiful San Diego, California. This life-giving conference is uniquely designed for moms of children with special needs and the circle of women supporting them. It is your invitation to step away from the demands of caregiving, breathe deeply, and be reminded that you are not alone. So bring your circle of friends, your bestie, a sister, or another mom walking this road with you, and come experience everything that Mom's Day Out 2026 has to offer.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have Marcus Jones on the podcast today. Marcus is Executive Director of His Eyes, part of the family of foundations at In-N-Out Burger Corporation. Marcus works to provide hope, immediate support, and sustainable solutions to those experiencing homelessness. Marcus is a longtime advocate for adults with intellectual disabilities and father of 4 children, including his oldest daughter who has Down syndrome. He has written multiple books, including The 5-Minute Marriage Mentor and Holding Hands with Grace, which is all about his journey of fatherhood with a child with intellectual disabilities. Let's listen in to my conversation with Marcus. Hi, Marcus. Welcome to the podcast today. Really excited here to talk and, focus on dads and our families.
I'm excited to be with you, man. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
I've been married about 25 years. We have 4 kids. I have spent most of my life in full-time pastoral ministry, and I work now in nonprofit space. I'm executive director of a foundation. We call ourselves the Jones Tribe, and we live in San Diego, and we're just having a blast now getting ready to graduate kid after kid into college. We've got one there now, another one going in the fall, another one following after that. We're just kind of in a season of life of some real transition for everybody, but that's kind of the road that we're walking, and it's a real joy.
Yeah, that's exciting time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, I know that your oldest child is the one with special needs and navigating that journey. And I know, especially for dads here, moms and dads come from it when they get the diagnosis and start navigating this. They come from different perspectives. How does that road go forward?
I think that, learning what I needed to learn was different than my wife. My wife's experience, like how she felt certain things, what was important to her, that was just in slight contrast to mine. Some things impacted her more than they did me, but some things impacted me that weren't even on her radar. And recognizing not only and appreciating the differences between us, but honestly becoming more aware of what was impacting me. And not just shoving it away or shoving it down or, sort of fingers crossed, hope it'll go away, not just grin and bear it kind of thing, but to actually start to work through it. And, but my struggles tended to be more around protectiveness, some of the health and safety things. I tended to kind of want to control the situation or, just command it to not be that way or somehow smooth out the path of life so that there wouldn't be any, as few potholes and everything else as possible. I tend to be kind of a futuristic planner and So I would get down the road and anticipate problems. And in so doing, I would sometimes completely overwhelm myself because I wasn't down the road 20 years yet. And I didn't have the capacity to even deal with that. Or I would maybe spin into worry or anxiety about things that weren't even within my control anyway. And so I think, starting to grow in my own awareness of myself was actually a very necessary growth point for me. I needed to be more aware of myself. I needed to be able to then be more empathetic toward where my wife was at and recognize she's going to navigate this a little bit differently than me, but we're in this thing together. And so I think that's probably been my biggest thing. And then appreciating, now, our daughter Addison is 21. And I will honestly say that over the course of that time, I've had the opportunity, the privilege to work with lots of different families like ours and interact with lots of different dads like me. And it never ceases to amaze me what I see in the hearts and minds of other dads who have gone through similar experience. Is there's a softness, there's an empathy that is at a higher level. There's a higher ratio of those things because of what they've gone through that in my experience makes them much more aware and I think effective leaders in the worlds that they live in, because they actually can appreciate the hurt in other people at a higher amplitude, and that's actually a good thing. And so there's so much that I've watched grow in my own life as a result of Addison being in mine that has fundamentally changed and shaped me, that I'm coming now to a place of such deeper appreciation for what that was. Even though when I started from a place of like, this is not how life's supposed to be. This is not okay. This, there was a sense of loss and grief and all these other things that I wasn't wrong for experiencing. I wasn't. They were loss, and it was painful and it was difficult. But in the long run, what it has produced is something that is deeply formative and transformative in my life that I then pay forward in the lives of other people as I interact with them. Because most people I know, whether they experience the same kind of, child diagnosis that I've experienced, are dealing with difficult things in their life. Life is painful. And I am able to then show up as an empathetic person, as a person that is others prioritized. I show up as the best version of me. And Addison helped me with that. Addison shaped that in me.
Well, I love that. Letting your circumstances be that thing that shapes you, and seeing that these very difficult circumstances that you go through also are the things that refine you as a person. You mentioned, though, that you became self-reflective, and I know that for men they just kind of do. And some of these feelings, it's real easy for a man to just be harsh, lash out because of what's inside of you. But you mentioned, you got in touch with what's inside of you. How did that journey take place? Like, did you go in and seek out counseling? Did your wife even recommend that you go seek out counseling or something like that to get to that point where, you just mentioned the better version of yourself, the more empathetic version?
I made a lot of mistakes. And I think that I was very much guilty early on of sort of a grin and bear it mentality. I told myself stories like, I don't need a lot of people. I told myself stories that I had more friends than I probably actually had. They were more acquaintances than they were true friends, or they were relationships that I hearkened back to that, from college or from like back in the day. They weren't contemporary every day in my life circles. And it didn't serve me well. And so the steps that I took really out then of my own pain and my own like, man, I'm not navigating this well. I'm breaking down in some things, and it's manifesting in broken relationship, or it's manifesting in anger that is like spilling out on other people and in other circumstances. It's showing up at work. It's showing up with my other kids. It's showing up, with the the clerk at Target.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, there's some stuff that's like deeper in here. And so, yes, I did go to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to seek out some perspectives that were not just what the echo chamber in my own head was. And then put myself in position and to go like, you know what, I'm isolated, but that's not okay. Who can I go and seek out? Proactively seeking out a mentor for me was a big step. And in my case, it was, I identified a guy that was about 20 years older than me, that I was just like, man, there's just a lot that I admire about this guy, and I just want to go get in his world. And so I just reached out to him and said, hey, would you be cool if I took you to lunch once a month and just ask you questions? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so like I bought him lunch once a month, and I showed up with a notebook full of questions, and I would just like rapid fire stuff at him. And that it cultivated a relationship that became like so vital for me. And it, like almost like a big brother, little brother type of relationship. It was very, very helpful. And that along with, putting myself in community, circles with other friends and developing things that they weren't easy for me to do. That wasn't maybe my natural inclination, but I started to recognize, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think for a lot of guys, maybe it's like the only like approved emotion that was like culturally acceptable emotion was anger.
Mm-hmm.
It was either happy and like laughter and, messing around, or it was anger. And I forget exactly who it was that pointed this out to me. I think it was probably my therapist that talked about how anger is actually, it's like a coping emotion. It's a covering emotion that covers more vulnerable emotions underneath that, like fear or sadness. And then when I started digging underneath that, I was like, oh no, it's actually, I just don't want to admit to myself or to other people that I'm afraid or that I'm super sad about a certain situation. It just always manifests itself in anger or in curtness or in coldness or in like just shutting down. Maybe I would try to self-control my mouth and not yell at people, but like I was just sort of steely, and it caused me to not be healthy as a human. And so digging into some of those other relationships that started like asking questions of me, helping me get curious about those things, helped kind of open the door on some stuff. And I was always a little afraid. It's almost like the Pandora's box. It's like, well, if I dig in there, am I going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle? Like, is it going to be like, am I going to just like start being weird, like emotionally and stuff like that? And in my case, that wasn't what it was at all. If anything, it was almost just like being able to put oxygen and light and sunlight on a wound.
Mm-hmm.
It was able to heal. It's not like it didn't become worse. It became better. And so that's some of my journey, has just kind of been seeking out other help and putting myself out there in community. It's been a huge, huge deal for me.
I love that. Identifying some of these emotions that take place, anger, other emotions, fear, how those things actually start controlling who you are as opposed to you being the one in control. And what are they doing? They're identifying the hurts that are inside of you, and being able to go to that hurt and actually like, why am I acting this way? And identify with that, work out with somebody that, a counselor that can help you identify that and put a way forward in dealing with those things. So we all come to the table with things. I love too, we both work in a place where we have the desire to mentor other men and so forth like that. And sometimes, you're like, oh, well, you guys have it all together or something. And certainly, sharing your story, not that saying you didn't have it together, but sharing your story that we come, it's all process. It's not, you don't come to the table and have it all worked out. It's a process that you have to work through, and everybody's on a journey of that process. and seeking out the help of somebody else. I love the fact that you looked to somebody else. You found something, God put on your heart, identifying somebody that could help, and you took the bold step of saying, "Hey, I need help. Can I just sit down and have lunch?" And how many if we actually go seek that out, it's almost never somebody will say, "I don't want to have lunch with you." They'll do that and then just see what takes place. If it's a one and done, sure, but what transpired from that is such a healthy way for somebody. You could ask questions, and the vast majority of people are there, and somebody sits at the table and says, "I want to know what you think and believe," and so that advice of looking for somebody that might be able to speak wisdom. They may not know everything about what your situation is, but definitely have something to life into you.
It's not like, it has to be this relationship and that one and this, everybody's got a different path. Everybody's got different needs, but it's kind of like, you mentioned working out.
Hmm.
When you go to the gym, you go with the intention to train, right?
Hmm.
They're going in there with the intent to train. They're not where they need to be, and they're training to get where they need to be. They're training to move forward. I know in a lot of careers, there's like ongoing training that happens. You go to a conference, you read a book, you
Hmm.
go to a mastermind, you train yourself to be better at what you do professionally. Why wouldn't we put ourselves in a position to train? Because we're not where we need to be, but we want to get on the road to get there, to
Hmm.
train in other aspects of our health, emotionally, spiritually, to get there. And I think what I recognize is that, my wife is an amazing person. She's an amazing woman. She's a great mom, but she's this incredible person,
Hmm.
but she'll never be a good dad.
Hmm.
That's not her job. That's my job. I got to hold down dad job. So I watch her. She does a lot of things that she trains. She resources herself. She reads. She's checking out a podcast. She's like in a group. She's like building friendships. She's working out with somebody. So that she could be at her very best. I found myself going like, man, there's other areas that I do that. I'll do that at the gym, or I'll do that as in my profession. I need to put myself on that same track as a dad and as a husband, because when I'm at my best, I'm contributing in a healthy way to my family. When I'm not, I'm part of the problem, right?
Hmm.
And I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. And I think that has helped my mindset to just look at it and go like, hey, I just need to train. I
That's
need to get in the game.
that's huge. Thinking of counseling and getting help or sitting with a mentor is training, as opposed to, oh, you have a problem. And then the other part of it too, and maybe you can speak into this, community, because having a mentor is one thing, but also having other brothers to walk beside with you, and in particular that get it. I mean, that's one of the big things I think, as our organization, Hope on the Hardware, does is really try to build a community that people get it.
Yes.
Because in a community, then you have different personalities. You're going to connect on different levels with different people.
Yeah, no, it's big. And, one of my favorite passages of scripture in Proverbs says, a friend loves at all times, but a brother is born for adversity.
Hmm.
And I think about my own life. The truth is, I can't determine in my own life when adversity is going to come, but I know adversity will come. I just can't pick when it's going to show up, as much as I like to think I can. Of course, I just can't. If I have built into my life brotherhood, then I'm ready for adversity.
Hmm.
If I haven't and adversity shows up, brotherhood doesn't just occur overnight.
Hmm.
And so what I see happen a lot, I've watched it happen in my own life, is I didn't ready myself for adversity. And so when it came, I had no brothers.
Hmm.
I will say this, having now built that into my life and pursued that, I would way rather take on adversity with a brother than just by myself.
Hmm.
It's just, somebody to have my six, somebody to stand with me, not even with, a pithy comment or advice or whatever. Sometimes it's just standing. Sometimes it's just showing up. And that ingredient is so massive. And it doesn't have to be 47 people in your life. I think guys get daunted by that sometimes. It's like, oh man, I just like, because most men, coming up, high school, college, or whatever, and they've got friends, but then they get married and they pour the sum total of their relational energy into their spouse and into their kids. And they think that's what they're supposed to do. 20 years in, they turn around and go like, man, I poured everything I've got into my nuclear family and I have no friends except for the ones that I used to hang out with and bowl with when I was in college. And go like, man, I'm from a dude standpoint, dude to dude, I'm by myself. And then we wonder why we're angry, or we wonder why we're frustrated, or we wonder why nobody understands. And the truth is, I think I get why we get there. Looking back, I wish that I had done the training that we were talking about. I wish I would have been more diligent in my life early on so that I didn't have to experience the adversity show up and no brothers in my back pocket. Because the contrast between what my life is today, my life is actually much richer, much healthier, having lateral support like that, in addition to my wife, because like I said, my wife's an amazing woman. She's a terrible dude, right? That's like not her role. And so that need in my life is always going to be there. And I will say this too, because this is the challenge for me, at my age, is then to say it's not just about the relationships that I go and I seek out. It's also a challenge to me to say, what's the relationship that I'm pouring into? Not just the ones that are like, hey, come pour into me. But a huge part of of manhood, I believe, is the legacy that we leave into the lives of other people. And not being so self-oriented to say like everything in here just needs to come and serve me. The highest level of fulfillment comes when I take what I've been given and I take the lessons I've learned. I take the experiences of hard things that I've taken in and I've received some encouragement in, and I go and I pour that into other people. And that's why for me, a huge core value for me is people that I believe that my life's made better when I help other people win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the big things is you're looking for community too, people that lift you up in marriage. They also recognize the value of marriage and it takes work, and not saying I'm just going to go in a meeting and meet with a bunch of guys that, are all going to complain about their wife. They're going to be, this is a hard thing interaction. How did you get out of that? How did you, what advice do you have to move forward with this so we can encourage our marriage? And so I think that perspective is, being deliberate with the type of men that you do build community with, because who you're around, the influence that you're around is going to shape who you are. And so looking at those type of people that are going to build you up, don't be afraid to like try something else and not feel like you're stuck. I think
That's a great point.
Those kind of things are important. You get stuck in a group and you're like, they're all complaining about their wives. I'm like, that's not how I want to be. That's not, there are difficult things and we all work through and we're continually being shaped, but just complaining without a road forward to better ourselves and better our situation is not healthy. So
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that makes about as much sense as me going to the gym and complaining about my wife's fitness. It's like, the reason I'm here is for me to grow and for me to get healthy and for me to strengthen up because, she may have her issues, but I've got plenty. Okay. I'm just like, I need to like deal right up in here. And if I can step toward health myself and I can be on a solid foundation, then I actually, and she'll do the same work and take responsibility on herself to do that. Then we end up growing together rather than being, opponents, in our relationship.
That's such a big thing about marriage is looking to be on the same team and being not opponents of each other. You look at the adversity and the challenge that you're in life and thinking that, oh, she's the source of the problem, but instead saying our life is challenging. There's a lot that's been thrown at us. We're a team together. What advice maybe you have for that?
Well, I think that I heard the analogy of like, you may have heard this too, but the difference between a herd of wild horses and a pack of donkeys. In the wild, a herd of horses, when they're attacked, when there is threat from wolves or whatever, they instinctively come together and they form a circle, and they put their heads in the middle and their haunches out. They kick out to prevent the enemy from coming in and getting their young and attacking the herd. Wild donkeys do the exact opposite. They get together all right, but they put their haunches together and they face the enemy, and they still kick, but they end up kicking each other. They kick each other and look at the enemy, and instead of facing one another and kicking the enemy. And I think that that's a silly example, but I feel like that's sometimes what it's like. The best recipe for being a jackass in your relationship is to basically kick one another and thinking that you're attacking the enemy, when the reality is that you're looking at the wrong thing. To ask ourselves, in so many different, occasions, who's the enemy here? And it's almost never our spouse. That's not what it is. We if you think back to the genesis of your relationship, what brought you together, and the partnership that was there, and the desire to take on the world together, if we allow the outward, the external pressures or the external attacks or the potential injuries to come and be at the center and divide us, then we're doomed before we start. And I think that's like maybe the question that I like to have on the tip of my tongue all the time is like, what's the real problem here? Who's the real enemy here? And it's never my wife. It just isn't. And, to put it into spiritual terms, we already know that we have an enemy, capital E, and we know what his intention is. Do we think his intention is to build our relationship or to rip it apart? It's always to rip it apart. Do we think his intention is to encourage us or discourage us? It's always to discourage us. Is it his intention to give us healing, or to just absolutely kill and destroy us? It's always to kill and destroy. So identifying who's the real culprit here, and then orienting our kicks in his direction, and keeping the solidarity and teamsmanship and partnership with our spouse at the center. That's easier said than done. That takes a discipline that goes beyond feelings. It can't just be like, oh, well, the romance doesn't feel like it's there right now, or, oh, she's not doing ... It doesn't matter. It's built not on what she does or doesn't do. That commitment's built on what my promise was at the beginning. That's about my word, not about what she does or doesn't do. And that's one of the things that I feel like I think a lot of guys miss, is they put all of the responsibility on their spouse or on the spouse's behavior or whatever, and they don't maintain or hold on to the covenant that they made, the word that they gave. And seeing that as something that's like, no, I'm not letting go of that no matter what. Like, that's the decision that we made, right? That whole till death do us part thing, that was kind of a big deal when we said that. And so that's not about what she does or what they do or what others. It's like, no, I'm in this thing no matter what. And that kind of commitment, and then identifying where the enemy actually is and who the enemy is a big, big deal. And I think, unfortunately, I think one of the things that men suffer with super significantly is passivity in their marriages. Quietness. They just shut down, or they get distant, or they just like go inside themselves, and they just completely, and they don't see that as contributing to the problem or to the threat to their home. When the reality is that if they knew, like in a physical way, like if they're sitting on their couch at home and an intruder came in their front door, they wouldn't be passive. They'd stand up. They'd be like showing the guy the door. They would they would move into action. Any guy with his salt would do that, right? But for whatever reason, we don't see our own passivity as to blame for letting stuff come, emotions come, or problems. Just, hey, come on in, no problem. I'll just sit here on the couch and just let you run rampant over my household or over my relationship or whatever.
Mhm.
And I wish for myself, and I wish for men to seize the same agency and the same proactivity in their relationships that they would to any other threat that might come walking in their door in a physical way. And I think if guys will do that, be like, no, it's not okay for me to just sit quiet on the couch and not talk to my kids.
Mhm.
No, I'm not going to just be a bump on the log, and mom's going to be the cruise director around here, and I'm just going to kind of dawdle along in an ugly sweater and a casserole in my hands and just like be the, the wall art in my house. No. I want to be proactively involved. I want to be the one that's inquiring and curious about my wife and asking questions of my kids, and physically embracing and hugging and loving on my family so that they sense the same covering spiritually, emotionally, relationally from their dad that they should receive physically if they were, if some intruder was coming in the house. They need all of it from me. And that's my job to do. That's the commitment that I made, and it's not contingent on what somebody else is going to do or not do. That's on me. And that's my challenge to myself every single day. It's how I want to show up.
No, it's absolutely huge, and seeing that all and being intentional with it. And one of the things you did with the whole animal analogy, if it's difficult for you and your wife to, if it gets, there's so much emotion and so forth like that in trying to deal and just discuss with her, well, then goes back to what we started at the beginning. Deal with that with the counselor, so then your relationship can be healthier, and you can have those discussions, because that I think is really what's needed. Deal with that hurt, and so often we're passive, and so seeing if it's too much to work all that out with your wife, which oftentimes it is, seeking out the extra help so that when you are with your wife, you're at a better state of mind and you've worked through that thing. So just huge advice, and practical things that people can do, and then finding the brotherhood, a community that is going to lift you up. The one thing we always love to do is ask, what is one thing you'd like to share with dads?
I think my encouragement to dads is it's never too late to have your day one, irrespective of how you've made mistakes in the past. Maybe you're listening today and you're like, man, I've messed up a bunch of stuff. I feel like I've spent my life climbing the ladder of success, and I look over and my wife and kids are on a different building. It's never too late for a day one.
Mhm.
And it's never too late to climb down off the ladder. It's never too late to begin again. And I think that that's one of the marvelous things about the grace of God, is that he's literally just always a half turn away from me. Just my flinch back toward him to be like, man, I've blown it. I need a fresh start. And the answer is yes.
Mhm.
And to me, that's super encouraging. So no matter, I love the name of your guys' ministry in this podcast, Hope on the Hard Road. I love that no matter how far down any other random road I've walked, I'm never a day's walk, or even, I'm an instant
Mhm.
from a turn. And so, if you're sitting here going like, man, yeah, I probably should have gone to counseling 20 years ago or whatever. It's like, no, well, let's just go today then.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, I am super isolated. I haven't maintained my friendships the way that I can. Listen,
Mhm.
who are you going to hit up with a text today? Who are you going to offer, buy them lunch, like today or tomorrow? And because I think that we can become so overwhelmed with how far off we feel like we are, that
Mhm.
it's like, well, I can never claw back to like zero again. And it's like, no, it's actually not that way. In fact, the very things that have been the points of your brokenness, they've maybe been the areas of your biggest mistakes, of
Mhm.
your biggest challenges, of your woundedness, of your other things, are actually the ingredients of your comeback.
Mhm.
They're the things that become your story
Exactly.
to move forward. And I was telling a young leader the other day, they were asking me about my story and things that I've gone through. And I actually told him, I said, you know what? There have been a lot of things in my life that have been deeply painful and hurtful, but I've also recognized that I don't trust a leader who hasn't been hurt,
Mm-hmm.
because leaders that haven't been hurt they have not built empathy
Mm-hmm.
so that they won't hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
People that have gone through stuff have grown and have stretched and have become aware of things, have made mistakes that they don't want to repeat. And so in that, there is hope, no matter where I find myself, to go like, yep, and I've blown it. I am far from sinless perfection, man. I've made plenty of marriage mistakes. I've made plenty of relationship mistakes. I mean, I've got them all over the place. But these are the things that it's like to recognize that I can keep getting up each day, and it's day one again.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the next right step that I need to take now so that I can move things forward? And the God of all creation is like a half turn from me to support me in the steps, because he's got a purpose and a plan for me in all of those things. He's not surprised. And to go like, okay, here we go. Let's begin again. And that's my encouragement to you.
That's huge. Yeah. The story's being written, and today's the first day of the rest of your life.
Yes.
And live that day out the way you want it to be, the story to be written. Yeah. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, this is fantastic, great advice and encouragement to dads. And so really appreciate you being here, Marcus.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me on.
Check out the show notes to find resources and contact information for today's episode.
Yeah. And if you like the podcast, please share it with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode.
We love to hear from our listeners, so leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.